What's going on, Bulls Nation, and welcome to CHGO Bulls Draft Week, presented by Coors Light. Make the most of the times you choose to chill. Get delicious, ice-cold, refreshing Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart. Go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I'm Pack Bulls _Pack. Big Day. Bow. BAWL Sports. Will the Go Gottlieb. Will _Gottlieb. Pound producer on the controls is the one and only Joey Spathis at Joey Spathis. And joining us for day one of NBA Draft Week, you know him, you love him. Four-time NBA champ. Three of them with our very own Chicago Bulls. Bulls pre- and post-game TV analyst. And don't you know, the Bulls' 11th pick in the 1988 NBA Draft. The one and only man in the middle. Will Perdue is here.
Vanderbilt in the building.
What's up, Uncle Will?
Oh, we're back to basketball talk.
Yeah.
Shoulders right.
Aren't you so excited?
Actually, I am.
Yeah.
Man. It's an exciting time, huh?
I want to first say I want to take credit. I picked the Boston Celtics from day one.
Hey.
And not because of the Porzingis trade.
Okay. You just knew.
Holiday?
Drew Holiday.
The flex.
I think that the Celtics will be sending a Christmas card to the Milwaukee Bucks for making that trade.
Yes.
And the Bucks will probably stick that Christmas card right in file 13.
Yeah. Was there anything about this playoff run that you were surprised by the most? Any series in particular that you really enjoyed watching the most? As someone who's like, oh, okay, Bulls, bye. Let me watch some good basketball now. Like, what was your favorite part about this year's playoffs?
The Celtics living up to expectations.
Yeah.
Because to me, I have a tendency to watch more personal or individual performances. And to hear what Tatum had to say last year when they lost. Because I think the one thing that losing does is teaches you what you really need to work on and what your weaknesses truly are. Because, you know, as you guys know, once you get to the playoffs, all your weaknesses, individually and team, are exposed. Right. Mm-hmm. So when the Boston lost last year, I thought it was more of an individual weakness than it was a team weakness. And I love how, as criticized as he was, Mazzulla stuck to what he believed in and continued down the road, as controversial as it may have been. And his coaching style is a little different, but it won him a championship. And then the best part about it all is you think there's something deep and intelligent, and this guy's a genius. And then, oh, well, him and Tatum were just watching scenes from The Dark Knight. And you're like, that's all it took?
Sometimes that's the only motivation you need, Will.
But then you're like, that's genius. It's just picking up things that you know an individual or a player can correlate with.
Right. And can relate to.
Yep. And I loved it. I mean, it's even without Porzingis. And the other thing is, it's just, I've always been a Holiday fan.
Yeah.
And not maybe more so because of what he's done off the floor, but just how integral he was. And when it was the time, is when he stepped up.
I mean, crucial role player on teams that have won 2 of the last 4 and did it for 2 different teams.
That's true.
Between the Bucks in 21 and then Boston this year. Does it bother you at all? I mean, I know you weren't there for 86 in that series against the eventual champion Celtics. You know, you didn't get drafted until 2 years later. Did you have a vitriolic hatred for the Celtics when you were, in your playing days with the Bulls?
No. The only team I really had a hatred for was Detroit. And I kind of realized after my career that was more created by our fan base than it was the players.
Not Bill Laimbeer legit choking you?
Yeah.
And you choking him.
Not Dennis Rodman shoving Scottie Pippen into the stands with the photographers.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
things.
it's listen, they crossed the line, but once you realize that that's how they had to play in order to win, and Chuck Daly even talked about, this isn't how I necessarily want to play, but when you look at our roster and how we have to play in order to be able to succeed and beat the Celtics and beat the Bulls and beat the Cavs,
Lakers, all them.
Lakers, this is what we have to do. Think about how good the East was back then.
Yeah.
I mean, I always talk about how good would the Cavs have been if Brad Daugherty's back hadn't been so bad. 'Cause I think people forget how good he really was.
Yeah, they were a stacked team, man.
You think about Brad Daugherty, Nance, Hot Rod Williams, Elo,
Young Harp.
But let's also talk about the
Kerr.
key. I mean, I think basically Steph Curry is Mark Price.
It's been saying that a long time. Yes, that's been said many a time. Absolutely true.
Because that's, if you talk, I remember John Paxson always talking about the most difficult player for him to guard that played, and I don't, for lack of a better term, played clean, was Mark Price. Just because of how fast he could play, how good he could shoot the ball. He talked about it was difficult to play Isaiah, but he talked about how Isaiah used to always have this move defensively where he would kind of stick his foot out before it became a foul and trip you.
Right.
And then you'd lose the ball and he'd steal it and go the other end and make a layup. But he just talked about from a defensive standpoint, just because Mark was really the first guy that could go 90 miles an hour, stop on a dime, and knock down a three.
True.
The defense couldn't stop quick enough and recover quick enough to really be able to contest that shot.
Yeah,
But you think about if the three was as important then as it is now, how many points that guy would have averaged.
Let me ask you this question. So, watching this finals, did you have a pause or a moment just to take in the fact that it was the Mavericks they were playing, and John Sabine loves the Dallas Mavericks? Did that cross your mind a little bit to say, I feel a little bad for my guy?
I didn't feel bad for him. I felt great for him.
Did you do any wellness checks?
Yeah.
I know you reached out to him when his son was born a couple years ago.
Yeah. And I actually reached out to him after he won a Webby or whatever.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
called.
Yeah. Shout out Merriam-Webster.
Yep. But I just kind of felt like I remember I was watching the game one night, and I should have texted him, but I had this image that he was probably sitting there watching the game, wearing his Luka jersey.
Sounds right.
And he'd probably just had goosebumps, and his hair was sticking straight up the whole time. Even though when he's watching, he's like, at some point the Celtics are going to turn it on and we're going to lose. But, just the fact that they got there. And I think we can all agree that, they surpassed expectations.
Yeah, I mean, the West was a gauntlet this year, and I don't think many people expected Dallas to be the last team standing coming out of that conference.
That's true.
Pretty crazy.
Well, let me just throw up one last thing.
Sure.
That tells you how players like Luka and Kyrie can elevate other players.
Yes.
Just like Michael and Scottie did with the Bulls teams, what LeBron does with the teams that he plays on. That tells you those are just next level guys. There's all-stars and then there's superstars.
Derrick Jones couldn't crack the rotation really in Chicago, and all of a sudden he's playing this integral role on a finals team.
That's
because
true.
of how, to your point, just how much better he was made by Luka.
Some may tell you that was just all Billy Donovan's fault, Will.
But also to go do a total 180, Steve Kerr bounced around the league until he gets to the Bulls, and you're like, well, what did Cleveland not see? And Phoenix and where else? I mean, what other team?
Orlando briefly? No.
Steve Kerr?
Yeah.
He was in Orlando.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For a hot second.
What was it about those teams that he couldn't, but it was the system with the triangle and the players, and he was the perfect fit.
Yeah.
So I still need to pump my brakes on Daniel Gafford, Will?
Oh, dude. Shout out to our guy Gustavo who pulled up that deep clip from years back.
Filling them up.
You were clowning Big Dave on an episode of Postgame after we had gotten cut by NBC about how obsessed he is with Daniel Gafford. And you were saying, like, hey, yeah, Gafford's good, but he's not that good.
Right. And I think he has gotten better. He's expanded his game.
Go, Will.
I have to give him credit for doing that because he was kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But he still has a lot of limitations.
Sure.
And as I talked about, you get exposed in the playoffs.
No doubt.
He got exposed.
In
But
the finals.
yeah, but he's one of the big reasons why they got where they got to.
Correct. He went at it with Rudy Gobert, man.
Yeah, but
Did his thing.
But him and Rudy are very similar players.
True.
Quite
Yeah.
honestly, right?
True. I'm just saying that to say because it's Rudy Gobert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the same time, you saw something I didn't see at the time. But I think also that's what I talk about, players realizing what their weaknesses are and are willing to, be accountable for that and work on them. I mean,
why I
I'm
appreciate you,
I'm
Will.
still not sure he can hit a shot outside 10 feet.
Why you got to go there, Will? you just gave me my love.
Yeah, but he shot 102% from the field
Almost
this
broke a Will
season.
Chamberlain record during the season, Will.
But that's what I talk about as far as being with the exact right players
Correct.
in Luka and Kyrie because of what they do to defenses.
Correct.
And his ability to get to the lane and get to the rim. And basically, all you got to throw it is within 6 feet radius.
He got it.
And he's going to get it.
Absolutely true. Shout out
And
to
that makes them
GM.
better too.
Absolutely.
They really utilize that spacing, right?
They did. Oh, every chance they got. And Derek Lively as well.
But that's also, like we were talking about, how, but that's how, Al Horford got exposed.
Yeah.
It's
That's true.
it's the same thing, but I think the one thing we always forget is that you can't correct every weakness. You got to go with what got you there.
Right.
And at some point, other aspects of the game have to pick up those weak spots. And if
Right.
you can't, you end up losing the series. So now Dallas has got to sit there and figure out, okay, what do we got to do? Because I truly believe that Denver will be back next year and will be the team to beat. But that also, how good did Aaron Gordon play last year compared to this year?
Yeah.
And without Aaron Gordon, who is a very good player, but I don't want people to think the term role player is being degrading to somebody.
It's
No.
not. Yeah.
But it's just when it comes to pecking order, that's what he is.
Trademark. Michael Porter Jr., incredible role player, did not have a great performance in this year's playoffs, and I think the lack of Denver's depth is what was their undoing.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
But that's where you have to have, when Porter plays his best and Gordon plays his best, and then, obviously you get what you get from everybody else, then you win a championship. That's how all the pieces have to come together.
He knows.
I mean, it's just, outside of Sabine and some drunk guy in Vegas who's like, oh, Dallas is making it to the finals.
Yeah.
Shout out to
I think they were the
which
only
would
two.
probably say that.
Oh, he wouldn't get a dad pass to go to Vegas for the
fair
finals.
point. Fair
There's
point.
not a chance in hell.
Fair point.
D'Angelo in the comments said, salute to Purdue, always dropping gems. Dread's also saying, hi, Will, huge fan of yours. Clarifying in parentheses, Purdue, not Gottlieb.
Yeah, Dreads does not like me very much.
Hold on, why? I don't understand how somebody can't like you.
Gotta ask Dreads.
It's a love-hate, man.
I think
no
there's
in-between.
a certain faction of Bulls fans who do not appreciate or do not love the, let's say,
Honesty?
cold and fact-based takes that Will offers about the current state
Okay.
of the Chicago Bulls.
Well,
So
let me
it-
just say this.
He hates to tell
I
you.
like to look at it through the lens. We always say basketball is a business at the end of the day. I like to look at it through that lens. Obviously, the Bulls just made a big business trade with Josh Giddey coming in. So I
man,
can't wait to
that.
get your thoughts about this.
Absolutely.
Well, hold on. Let me just finish this discussion. What's the guy's name again? Dreads?
Yeah.
Dreads in the comments. One of our regulars.
Shout
What's
out.
up, Dreads?
So he's a huge fan of yours.
Do you think Dreads respects your work? Even though he doesn't necessarily like you, does he respect
I would
your
like
work?
to think so.
That's
I would
all
like
that
to think
matters.
Dreads?
Dreads in the comments. Feel free to let us know. Do you respect
Feel
the
free.
GOAT's work?
They keep showing up, so I would say so.
Yes.
Let's take our first break there. We'll come back on the other side. Speaking of that Caruso for Giddey trade, we got to get your thoughts on that, Purdue, and if it might be the first of several dominoes to fall for the Bulls actually enacting some big roster overhaul this offseason. And, of course, got to get your thoughts on the NBA draft that's just a couple days away. That's all still ahead on today's CHGO Bulls Draft Week presented by Coors Light. Our guy Will Perdue hanging out with us in studio. Hit the like button. Do it for this legend right here while Dave tells you about who?
Beer.
Oh, yes, please.
Coors Light. We're Purdue ones. He enjoys it. It's sitting in front of him. He asked the question, can I have one? I said, Will, you got to focus. He said, I'm Will Perdue. I do what I want.
I didn't say that.
He did not. That's how I played in my
Don't
head.
put words in this man's mouth.
No, it's my brain. That's how it works sometimes.
I think my wife would be like, hallelujah.
Between work, social media, and the choices life throw our way, it's no wonder we're more worked up. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn that rained-out barbecue into the Will to Go Gottlieb 314th annual karaoke house party? Or, after a tough loss, settle the scores with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill, then reach for Coors Light and that mountain cold refreshment. Because when those mountains turn blue, oh, you know what to do. It's as cold as the Rockies. Cold lagered, cold filtered, cold packaged for a smoother finish. So embrace that chill mindset. It's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light, crisp and refreshing Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of their time to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get it delivered straight to your door via Instacart. You don't even have to move. Just pick up your phone and put it in there. CoorsLight.com/CHGO basketball. That's CoorsLight.com/CHGO basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
You get a discount if you put in CHGO/Coors Light?
You get it delivered straight to your door. And we got many, many discounts that we got when you enter that code CHGO, and I'm sure we'll get into it.
Can I mention somebody's name?
Uh-oh. We flexing? Come on, Will.
No, I'm not flexing. It's just that my brother-in-law, Kevin Vietti, loves Coors Light.
Oh.
Kevin.
Hey.
It's
CoorsLight.com/CHGO basketball.
Yes, sir.
When we go out of town, we ask him to come get the mail, and I open the trash can, and there's a couple empty Coors Lights in there. He says that's the price of admission.
Hey, well, if your family member Kevin doesn't have any plans for NBA draft night, tell him to come hang out with us, PB&J, right here in the West Loop of Chicago.
Tons.
Coors Light's going to have deals on deals on deals, drink specials all night long while we're live from PB&J.
Look, he only deals with one four-letter word. Free.
What's that age-old saying, Joe?
Come on, Joe.
About
What did I
free
teach
stuff?
you? What I tell you about
what
free,
did Dave
Joey?
teach you about free stuff?
That's right.
Free tastes better. That's right. Speaking of discounts, Purdue, here's one for you. Shout out to our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary who are here to help you elevate your summer. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They've got crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from. Indicas, sativas, hybrids, with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Stop in the store nearest you throughout Illinois for expert guidance from their staff or select from quality lines like Cresco and Florical. And here's the latest juicy detail for you. For the summer season, Good News Brand's Tea Time Disposable Vape bringing classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course. This guy golfs because we all need a little help staying loose on the green. Sink those putts. Head to sunnyside.shop. Use promo code HICHGO at checkout for 35% off your favorite brands like Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase and to elevate your Sunnyside summer. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and over, or Illinois Med card holders. You know, this is a pretty growing and I think healthily so.
Can I tell it's not Coors Light, but can I tell? I don't think you guys are old enough.
For what?
Can I tell a
beer? Yeah, we are.
Old school Coors story?
Sure, absolutely.
So when I was growing up, my dad tricked me.
I like where this is going.
I said I wanted to make
a story.
I wanted to make more money.
Okay.
Right? And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I can go door to door and cut people's grass.
Okay.
And he's like, yes, but if you do that, before you knock on their door, you better make sure our yard is immaculate. Because when you knock on their door to cut their grass, the first thing they're going to do is look at our house. So how is our yard going to look if our yard looks bad and you ask them to, hey, can I cut your grass? And our yard doesn't look good, they're going to be like, I'll get somebody else. So I kept our yard immaculate. I was cutting it twice a week. Back then, you edged it with the blade where you took chunks of concrete out.
Okay.
You know, there was no such thing as blowers. You had to sweep it up. But I just remember I used to cut this one guy's grass, and he was gone a lot. And he gave me a key, and he's like, oh, just go in there and, get something to drink. Because, in Florida, it's hot. I grew up. So I used to always go in there, and he always used to have Coors. Well, back then, you couldn't get Coors east of the Mississippi. I'm down in Florida and be like, oh, man, Coors was like gold.
Yeah. And we talking about like the old school, like Coors banquet beer and those little short portly bottles?
Banquet beer. I still go, what the hell is banquet beer?
Yeah.
That's a story for another day.
Shout out
And
to
he always had a 6-pack, and then I'd go cut the grass and go in there and open the refrigerator, and then it was down to 5, and then it was down to 4. And then he had this one that was just like sitting there for a couple weeks, and I went in, he literally had nothing else in his refrigerator. And I'm like 14 years old, and I'm like, and as a kid, you're like, oh, this stuff's like, technically this stuff is illegal. I'd be breaking the law if I cracked that open and drank that right now because, and I'm just like, he'll never know, except I forgot it was the last one in the refrigerator.
Oh, cardinal sin.
Cracked that baby open and chugged that thing down.
Oh.
The next week, he's there and I'm cutting the grass and he goes, hey, you didn't happen to see my last Coors, did you? And I'm like, absolutely not.
Deny.
Well, back then, nobody had video cameras in their house either.
Yeah.
It was like, prove it.
To this point, I'm sure he knew it was me, but until now, he didn't know 100%. He knew 99.9%.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
He was just testing you to see if you were going to fess up.
Check you out, man.
He knew.
But then the worst part was because, as a kid, you're like, I can't really tell anybody because, A, it's illegal, and B, he'll find out. So it's just one of those things you just made like hanging out with your friends at a party and you just want to go, hey, man, I had a Coors the other. No, you didn't. Really? Where? I shouldn't have told you. I can't.
Everybody's got to know.
Shout out to our buddy Fish who just said in the comments, that's true. I smuggled a case of Coors from my aunt's house to my mom on a plane from Arizona to Chicago in like 1985.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, I graduated high school in 83, so this was, in the late 70s. And I was just like, then I'm like, what is this guy doing that he has Coors in his refrigerator? What? So it's just...
There you go.
Dreads likes the GOAT.
There you go.
This goat.
There you are.
My guy, Dreads.
I did. Hold on, Dreads. I said not like. I said respect. Do you respect the content?
To clarify.
That's what he did say.
Uh-huh.
We'll wait on that response.
While we wait on that response, here's a question from Trey in the comments. Hey, guys, does the addition of Giddey help us with the length problem we've been having? Because I've never liked having this many guards. We were really undersized for a few years now. Let's use that comment to dive in to get your thoughts, Mr. Perdue, on this Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey, player-for-player, straight-up swap that happened last Thursday afternoon. As far as the question about size, yes, Josh Giddey is larger than at least half of the last season's Bulls roster. He's, defensive problems solved by Giddey's arrival and Caruso's departure. I certainly would not go that far. But what do you make of this trade? Were you disappointed that it was a player, that specific player, instead of draft capital?
Break it on down.
Not really.
Not really.
But I would have thought. Now, let me ask you guys this question.
Okay.
At this past season's trade deadline, would you have not have felt that Caruso's value was higher than this?
At last year's trade deadline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did feel that his trade value was higher than this.
It was.
Yes.
Okay, and I still feel like it is higher than this, but I think this trade is made on potential.
Sure.
And that's a word that gets people fired.
It's a bar.
Because I can honestly say when I saw that, like, I was with my son at the time down in Louisville, and he's like, they're attached to their phones, right? And he's like, oh my God, Caruso got traded. And I thought he was BSing me. He said, no, Dad, Caruso just got traded for Giddey. And I'm like, what else? He goes, no, just straight up Giddey. And I'm like, no, there's got to be draft picks. Scroll down and, what does Woj say? What does Shams say? What's going on? There's got to be more. And, nope, straight up. So I can honestly tell you the first thing that came to mind was this is something that has future implications. Meaning the possibility of packaging him and somebody else closer to draft night.
Okay.
Because I thought that, as you guys just alluded, and I asked the question, that Caruso's value was higher than this. Okay? So then, since that trade has happened, I've thought about it a lot. Because I had kind of put all that Bull stuff behind me.
Okay.
And that kind of kicked it into gear as far as, kind of coming back around, right? And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, number one, he's younger. He's only 22. Okay? As you talk about the length issue. But then to me, I kept getting back to the point, the Bulls had a lot of weaknesses, but offensively, what's something that we've hoped and been asking them to address year after year after year?
3-point shooting.
Well, 3-point shooting, which he's not going to help you with, but also better ball movement and offensive creativity.
But more so than anything else, 3-point shooting, right?
Yep.
How many times did we watch a game last night a game,
Right.
and you looked at the final stats and somebody outscored them from the 3-point line by 3-1, 2-1.
Yep.
And you're just like, this has got to be addressed. And you basically traded a 40% 3-point shooter for a 30. I mean, I went back and looked. I think his rookie year, he shot 27%.
Yeah. And he's bumped it up to above 30 each of the last 2 years.
30. 2 years ago was 32. This past year was 34.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
So that doesn't necessarily help that issue. But there are areas, I think, where the length will help. And I think that also another thing that I liked was, if you go back and look at the numbers, he's played 70-plus games. Outside of his rookie year, where I think he played 50-something, I think 54, the last 2 years he's played 70-plus. That's huge. Because I think, we always thought that, okay, Caruso over-under was 60. So I think that and not that Caruso wasn't consistent, but I think this will, hopefully from a health standpoint, give Billy a little more consistency about what he can do, with his lineup.
Do you feel AK is also kind of still trying to design the team in the image that he had previously with Lonzo Ball there by getting a guy like Josh Giddey?
That's a really good question, because I hadn't thought about that until now. Because me personally, I've moved on from Lonzo Ball.
Sure.
Yeah, but like Woj in his report of the trade, he mentioned in one of his tweets, the Bulls trying to find a replacement for Lonzo Ball and talking about Giddey as sort of like a starting point guard potential option, and that's what the Bulls front office was looking at, as Giddey as a Lonzo replacement.
Me and Woj.
Possibly. But I still think Kobe is the point guard. I think now if that's how you want to look, because that's where I wanted to go with you guys. Said, when we're having this conversation, how are we looking at Giddey? Are we looking at him as a small forward or a 2 guard? What are we looking at here? At the end of the day, you can technically look at him as both. I mean, we played Caruso at the 4 because of injury. So, in my opinion, just from an offensive and a defensive standpoint, having the ability now to play Giddey at 4 is much better, at 6'8" than Caruso at 6'4". If you have to go that route because of injury. So there's pros and cons to everything. I think you can tell by my first reaction was I was not happy with the trade.
Okay.
Because I think that the biggest thing it does is it hurts you from behind the arc, and I think it hurt, that was your best on-ball defender. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So, what was the biggest weakness from 2 years ago to last year? I think it was the defensive rating, right?
Huge fall. They were a top 5 defense 2 years ago. This year they fell to 21st, Will?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to address and really, try to improve the 3-point shooting, then that really puts so much pressure on your defense. And were the Bulls not the worst team in the league in defending the corner 3?
Yeah.
Terrible.
That they were.
Yeah.
So
Can't shoot 'em, can't
now
defend
listen,
'em.
there's been some changes in the coaching staff. So maybe that will address some of these deficiencies as far as, the schemes that they run defensively. And I do think that there's going to be more changes to come. That's why I kept thinking, okay, maybe this is a bigger picture thing. Let's get Giddey. Let's make a package. Let's move this on. Then we can get draft picks. But if there was a team out there that had plenty of draft picks available, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder.
That part.
So that's just, I don't want to give them a grade yet, and I don't want to, say, hey, my initial reaction was I was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
I've now taken a more let's wait and see attitude.
Yeah.
And see, because there could be other changes made where you're just like, okay, now I see how this Giddey piece fits into the puzzle.
Yeah.
Do you think that this latest example, after a 3-year gap of no trades, and then thinking back to the Vooch trade, do you feel like AK is just not a skilled negotiator when it comes to being a front office executive, part of whom his job is to make trades that help his team?
Well, let me back up to preface something before I answer that question. People can talk about hindsight's 2020. I honestly like the Vooch trade.
You did.
And I still don't think that that's the biggest problem. I know that he's become the guy that a lot of people just hate on night after night after night.
Had a bad season.
But my biggest thing is if you're going to, not only if you're going to trade for him, but if you're going to re-sign him, use him properly. Then we can sit here and talk about is he worthy enough, or is he valuable enough, or is his win share numbers worthy of the contract and the re-signing? Because I'm not sitting here saying, and I talk about this on the show all the time, you got to just dump the ball down to him in the post.
Right.
But we watch these games where he gets 28 and 14. And we're like, all right, every night, man, he can give you that every night. But then there's just no consistency on the offensive end. So my biggest question is not about Vooch. It's how do you intend on using him? And if you're not going to use him properly, can you move him?
Yeah.
Questions.
That's a big question too. We got to talk about what the heck the Bulls are going to do. Zach, DeMar, Vooch, we need your thoughts on those. Also want to get your thoughts on Patrick Williams and his restricted free agency. All that's still ahead with our guy Will Perdue, Bulls 3-time champ, NBA legend, hanging out in studio with us on day one of CHGO Bulls Draft Week, presented by Coors Light. Hit that like button for our guy Will Perdue if you didn't do it the first time around. And let me tell you right quick about our friends at Circa Sportsbook. NBA Finals might be over. Playoffs are over. That's sad, but
It is.
WNBA action, man. Did you catch that Sky Fever game? Have you been watching the Chicago Sky?
Did I not tell you that was Joakim Noah when
Dude.
we got her? I told you that was Joakim
Did
Noah.
you see her stat line yesterday?
Oh, my God. Yes.
25 and 16?
First rookie to do that since Asia Wilson.
Angel Reese, man.
Beast.
She's a dog. You can't
Wow.
teach that.
Hey, exactly what she said.
Big comeback win for the Chicago Sky
Beast.
over Caitlin Clark and the Fever yesterday. Shout out to the Chicago Sky. Shout out to our CHGO Sky crew,
Yes.
Steven and Chris, who are doing a great job covering that team. Circa's here. WNBA is here. NBA finals are over, but there's still plenty to have fun betting on this summer. Of course, also MLB in full swing. We've also got a Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight.
Crazy.
Shout out to our CHGO Blackhawks crew. They're going to be doing a live watch-along right here in studio for Game 7 between Edmonton and Florida.
Oh, man.
Hang out with them right here on our CHGO Sports YouTube channel.
That's awesome.
And get your bets in. Do it at Circa, where they always strive to have minus 110 starting odds on whichever game you're betting on. Point total over-unders, game spreads, money lines, all that jazz. Minus 110, not minus 115 or minus 120, which is what you'll see a lot of sports books doing these days for no good reason. They're just being greedy, not Circa. Circa also doesn't limit their players based on winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other sports books who limit those players on hot streaks. There are real people behind that Circa Sportsbook app who resolve any issues you might have in a timely fashion, unlike other sports books who use the dreaded chatbots. Customer service is real at Circa, where oftentimes these days you will find that customer service is fake, fairy dust made up BS. and it can be aggravating. We all know what that feels like. All aspects of that Circa app are being run by the same team that run their main Circa Sportsbook at Circa Resort and Casino in Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Summer League, we're getting close.
On race.
We are less than a month away from NBA Summer League. Download the Circa Sports Illinois app, circasports.com/app-app to sign up today. Be on the lookout for Circa's events, watch parties, and tailgates, including hanging out with our CHGO Cubs crew every Friday 1:20 club game in the bleachers, at Murphy's before the game, at Almost Home in Wrigleyville after the game. If you or someone you know may have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234. Visit areyoureallywinning.com.
Matt, let me handle something for you real quick. Because Charlie says no one never put up those numbers, though, Big Dave. Sir, I got this. Sir, Joakim Noah had a game. I'm just giving you one, where he had 23 points, 21 boards, and 11 blocks. All right? He put those numbers up. You don't be fourth in MVP by not putting up those kind of numbers, all right? You don't get no, absolutely not. That's false. Go ahead, get on back, man. I'm giving you the nice version because Matt was about to lose it on you. I'm giving you the nice version.
Putting that hat back on my head.
Putting it right back.
I appreciate.
I got you, man. I got you.
We don't have the time.
We don't have the time. But you have the time to become a diehard,
Hey-o.
and you can do it today. CHGO diehard is what you can become. I love when Will looks at me like, this dude is crazy. CHGO diehard, ladies and gentlemen, is what you need to be. Of course, you get the podcast and the live shows for every team every day. You get the post-game shows. But what you also get is the premium written content that you can get from our awesome writers, along with our guy, Will the Go Gottlieb. As I tell you all the time, that big draft board that he's got, the stuff he's doing for the draft, he will make you a smarter basketball fan. I promise you. You will be smarter reading the stuff this man is putting out. You get 20% off of all events. You know, you even get 20% off the free ones. Why not?
Speaking of, we got over 30 RSVPs for our draft party on Wednesday.
Shout out, baby.
Come hang out with the cool kids.
Come hang out. We got more for you, baby. You got dope merch. Of course, we got that dope merch for all the team. And you can get a free T-shirt of your choice. Whatever T-shirt that you want, we can give it to you so you can look even more amazing. And, of course, that Discord, that members-only Discord, that CHGO Lounge, I was in the Discord for the first time ever this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
It's a fun place.
And I was talking wrestling.
Of course you were.
I was in the wrestling Discord. Shout out to our guy G Ross was up in there.
Hey, Gary Ross, what up, buddy?
Man. Yeah, I had a good time because they were in Chicago, you know what I mean, doing wrestling. So I got up in the Discord. I had a good time. It was fun. I'm going to come for y'all next, Bulls fans. I'm going to come talk to y'all because I got some questions about the trade, and I know y'all got stuff for me. But become a diehard. Come enjoy this fun. Come get on this ride. It is a great time. When that Bear season comes around, you're going to want to be there for those tailgates, and you can get 20% off of that by becoming a diehard, y'all. Do it today.
Woo woo. All right, moving along with our guy Will Perdue in studio.
I'm impressing Will over here.
Will, you said, could this be the first of several moves? Is that what you're hoping for? Like, as opposed to, like, hey, does Giddey fit and somehow the Bulls are going to still try and be, quote-unquote, competitive again next season? If it's not that, maybe it's a signal of they're actually going to take a step back and kind of focus on getting younger and reevaluating, maybe even prioritizing keeping that 2025 pick that they owe to San Antonio from DeMar, sign and trade. If they are gearing up for a pretty significant roster change, do you have a preference between maybe, if they only do one of these things, whether it be find a trade for Zach LaVine, maybe on draft night, as sort of a salary dump, hopefully you don't have to attach an asset to get off of him, maybe you do, or you keep Zach, try to build back up his trade value if he hopefully comes back healthy at the start of the season, and let DeMar walk, or maybe look for a sign and trade for DeMar. Do you think that the Bulls should prioritize one of those things over the other, or would you like to see them just trade both or let both go in one manner or the other and really just start over?
I think that's just my opinion, and opinions are like, you know what, and they all stink, but
Well, we brought you here to share your opinions.
We love your smell, Will.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't have said that. It's just, it's ironic how things happen. Where's my phone here? So, my wife is out in LA visiting her sister because their grandmother turned 100 this month.
Wow. Congrats
That's awesome,
to Grandma.
That's amazing.
So my wife is like, she's like she can't, there it is. She is like the GIFs are like top notch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So apparently her sister has an older dog. We're just going to go really down the, did you just see that?
No, I didn't.
No, he's laughing at GIFs.
We're going to go down a rabbit hole here.
Come on with it.
That you never thought was going to happen.
Oh, God, yes.
So she's staying with her sister. They went to the event yesterday. They went to Wilmette Valley yesterday, went, to the river, et cetera, et cetera. She's flying back today, but this morning they heard this big noise, and they thought one of the kids, the kids can play in their room, but they can't come out until 7 a.m., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And they heard this big thump, and her brother's there too, and he came in and he goes, "Did you hear that noise?" I'm like, "What is it?" He goes, "Otis was trying to bang his head against the door." That's their dog. They got with a bulldog. Mm-hmm. He was trying to let him know, but unfortunately, and I have to tell this to set this story up, he kind of made a little mess in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, out of the blue, my wife sends a GIF from Anchorman. That's the smell of desire.
It's got real bits of Panther in it, so you know it's good.
And then all of a sudden, I forgot about it, so I hit play, and then what's her name that played the female anchor?
Christina Applegate.
Yeah, it goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, my God. Smells like a baby diaper that's had Indian food." And now all of a sudden I just can't get that thought out of my mind, and then you just all of a sudden throw that out there, and I was like, "Oh, come
Hey,
on, man."
Dreads in
Glad
the
I can
comments is
inspire
suggesting that we sell your scent as cologne. Bulls fans,
Sell
there's a
this
market
cologne.
for it.
Now, again, mentioning that's also one of my episodes on Seinfeld.
Which one?
It's a quiz. What scent did Kramer?
Oh, that's easy. The beach.
That is correct. Who doesn't want to smell like the beach?
I thought you were going to talk about the episode where there's that smell in Jerry's car.
Oh,
Another classic.
that was a good one.
All right,
So
now
let's get back to the
Mr.
question.
Perdue,
yeah.
quit stalling.
I'm not
Trade
stalling.
Zach, sign and trade DeMar. Which one?
Well, considering what you just did,
Yeah.
and I know I just said, I'm thinking that this is the part of a bigger plan. I think the biggest, if this is what you're planning to do, let's just say get younger.
Right.
I don't think Zach, until he proves he's healthy, is going to have much value. I could be wrong. So in order to, continue to get better, and it may, it's the old saying, take a couple steps back before you take leaps forward,
Sure.
is probably do a sign and trade with DeMar. And the reason why I say that is okay, now you got Kobe, Io, Giddey. I have every thought that their intention is to bring back Patrick Williams at a price. Because I still think that we haven't seen all he has to provide. We've seen glimpses. Mm-hmm. He's shown us that there are times when he can dominate. Because physically, there's just not a lot of guys in the league that have what he has.
Right.
But as I've always continued to say, they just need to continue to feed this guy nails.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, nature versus nurture, or however you want to phrase. So you're saying you think that there is a different, better version of Patrick Williams that we haven't seen yet, and it's maybe about what's holding him back, and if there is a better situation around Patrick that he can reach that next level that
Yeah,
Bulls fans have been hoping to see for the first 4 years of his career.
Let me say two things. I'll say something about DeMar. To me, none of this is personal. This is just about a guy as a former player who's very fortunate, to be here at the right time. And, I whenever I walk in the United Center, I stop for a moment, count my blessings, look up at the banners, and, think about how lucky I am, to have my name on those banners. But I also think, to me, that should be the expectation anytime a fan walks into the United Center. And that should be the expectation of, Arturas and Mark, which I think it is, to get back to that. We just saw the Celtics do it, and that was their 18th championship. And you're like, damn. That's
After their glory days, they did manage to get one in 2008 and have been making deep playoff runs perennially with this team that they rebuilt around, homegrown, aka drafted talent,
right?
Tatum and Brown.
But I just think that, and this is nothing against DeMar, it's just how he plays, his style. This is a guy that, is a vital piece of the right team. I don't think he's a vital piece of this team moving forward.
Right.
Because it's just the style of play. He needs to have the ball in his hands. And I think that's where, because of Patrick's nature of how he was raised, and I always say this too, I hope my son turns out to be like him from a respect standpoint, from a manner standpoint, from a, just a good, solid kid, right? But at some point, he's got to, as Popovich says, we need to see some nasty. Because I know he can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're right at the point of the summer where we're going to start seeing some of those videos pop out where he's playing, he's dominating, he's wheeling and dealing. You're like, okay, carryover. Where's the carryover?
Right.
But I think that, as long as DeMar's here, and this isn't his fault, I'm just saying that as long as he's here, we're just not going to see that consistently.
Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
I would just say that, based on what Woj tweeted after the trade went down, that my hope is that the Bulls would also understand that, because they said that they feel like Giddey has all-star potential. And
I do think he does.
The Bulls can offer him an opportunity to have the ball in his hands, so much more freedom and pass to score. So, they have to understand that, you can't trade for a guy that needs the ball in his hands for a guy who didn't need the ball in his hands.
Right, because that statement makes no sense if DeMar is here.
And then you still have Kobe, who, by the way, is now, if you're bringing in Josh Giddey to be your point guard, where does that leave Kobe? You have Patrick, who you want to bring back. You still have DeMar. You still have Zach. How do you make that all work? And, so I agree with you that, the only way is, and it's not, anything against DeMar, as we've talked about a billion times on the show, it's just this is the situation that the Bulls are in right now, and it makes the most sense to put the ball into a guy's hands who they just traded for, who can maybe be a great passer and start to make guys like Patrick and Kobe better.
Yeah, but let's also, since you went down that road, let's talk about this, because Kendall and I and Jason, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it too, how much better, if you put Giddey on the floor, how much better does that make Kobe as a shooter?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
You can, not only can he handle the ball and look to attack the rim, but at the same time now, how about when he gives that ball up? And let me preface this by saying he's not Steph Curry, but he has Steph Curry characteristics.
Sure.
He's bigger, stronger. But I think all of a sudden now you set up some stuff where you're not necessarily running the offense for him, but you keep him on the move like a Steph Curry. I think after what Kobe experienced this last year, he will be ready both mentally and physically to play that type of role. Because to me, the biggest drawback for Kobe last year was he hadn't played this many minutes before in the NBA. And he was a very regimented, twice a day guy workout, go back to the Advocate Center at night and get shots up. But then he realized, because of the amount of minutes he was now playing, which was double more than what he had played any other year, he couldn't do that. That was affecting his rhythm. We saw him consistently go through droughts. So now what he's also doing in this offseason is figuring out now, okay, once the season starts, what can I do to keep me prepared for 82 games? Not play 12 really good and then, go 1 for 25 over the next 6, and then all of a sudden get off the schneid and then, ride the roller coaster. Where can I get that consistency from to where I, as a player, when I'm stepping on the floor, I still feel like I'm in rhythm. I'm not out of rhythm. But yet, because of how many minutes I'm playing, I can't go into the gym, the day after a game, after practice later that night and get up 300 shots. Because then when I come to the game, I'm exhausted. So I think he's going to figure that out. But all of a sudden now, take the ball out of his hands, where he doesn't always have to be the primary ball handler and let him just run down the floor, that's less stress.
Yes.
And all of a sudden he's coming off some staggered screens, Giddey with the ball.
Yeah.
That to me makes, and people can laugh all they want, but I fully believe that now makes Kobe a perennial all-star.
Ooh, talk that, Will.
Wow.
Because I always say a good point guard removes thinking. Like, you just react. You don't have to think about it, where you need to be and all the other stuff. You get there, your point guard is going to find you. He's going to have you in the right position. Kobe, if you notice in that fourth quarter, it's usually off of DeMar DeRozan finding him. It's not Kobe. Usually it's not creating. That changed this year a little bit, but usually it wasn't the creating. It was him finding the spot, them getting him the ball, cash money.
Right.
So getting a point guard that can find you, but now also combining it with his newfound handles and that newfound confidence that you talk about, you're right. Like, you could probably be on that level, and that's a little exciting.
Here's the one thing that, because I agree with you that like it allows Kobe to work a little bit more off ball, and I think that's something the Bulls did not do nearly enough of last year. But if we're talking about DeMar and how he factors into all this, like one of the things that they had said over and over again was like, DeMar draws 2, and that allows him to kick it out, swing, find Kobe. And if they don't have DeMar, like Giddey to me is a very good passer, but where he struggles is putting pressure on the rim. And if you can't put pressure on the rim, that means you can't draw 2 to the ball. If you can't draw 2 to the ball, like you're not breaking down the defense.
Correct.
So,
But let me ask you this question. Why was it so important to bring 2 to the ball? Because in the fourth quarter, with the ball in DeMar's hands, they were walking it up the floor. If you don't have to walk it up and you can run because now you're younger, you have to worry about, setting up plays.
Sure.
But you can still, that was probably the thing that aggravated me the most, was I wanted Kobe, to have the wherewithal to tell DeMar, just get down the floor. We're still pushing the ball. We're still trying to run. You'll get your touches. But our goal is to run, because I always used to look at 90 possessions or more. That was kind of my number when you talked about, not possessions, but shots.
Oh, okay.
You started looking at the Bulls when they got 90 or more, they had a winning record. I'm almost 100% positive. When they had less than 90 shots, it was, a losing record. It wasn't like significantly different, but to me, that was like the baseline. I don't know what the baseline was for the coaching staff, but I was always looking at that stat. How many field goals did they get? Because the more field goals you get, the less percentage you have to shoot in order to still have the advantage, the upper hand, because of the fact that you don't shoot as many threes as your opponent, right? Everybody talks about the Boston Celtics and how good they were from an individual standpoint with Brown and Tatum, but they're also shooting 40-plus threes a night. Live with the 3, you die with the 3. They kept doing that.
Yeah.
And they kept launching them, and it cost them some games. But that's what got them there, and that's how they won. But they also had the ability in half-court situations to attract and kick because of Tatum and because of, Brown. I think the Bulls, if you're going to do this and you want to talk about running, you got to do it for the full 48. You can't just do it, in the first half.
That's true.
Before we finish up with a few thoughts on the draft the day after tomorrow, a couple of shout-outs are due to some of our wonderful fellow Bulls fans with some super chats in the comments. Let's talk Bulls saying, I can see Kobe playing amazing in that shooting guard role, but if Giddey can learn a consistent three-point shot, do you see him as a poor man's Tyrese Halliburton? Wow. That's an interesting comment. I'd say let's see if Giddey can develop a three-point shot before we throw
Tyrese
out.
was like one of the best three-point shooters outside of Steph Curry ever last year. He was
You're talking about an all-NBA caliber player. Yeah. But also, Let's Talk Bulls through a second super chat saying, hey, Bulls fam, I'll miss Caruso, but I'm happy the trade shows AK might actually be ready to give up on the idea of running it back. Let's freaking hope so. And shout out to Matt Nugu for a $4.99 super chat saying, here's $5 for your lovely faces on this Monday.
Thank you, Matt.
Shout out to Will Perdue. Hopefully someone shows him Carm's MJ impression. Happy draft week. You know our friend Mark Carmen. CHGO.
Joey, have you seen this?
I don't know. I just saw him do some video with that Dave Swirsky guy that went up on Twitter earlier today, which was terrible. by the way. Carm, learn to sing or stop singing, please, for the love of God. But no, I'm not. Are you familiar with Carm's MJ impression?
I remember them recreating the last shot against Utah.
Oh,
and him
right.
doing it
At Midtown Athletic Club.
Yes, correct. And him doing it that way. Is that the one you're talking about, Joey?
Some shoddy editing work.
No, he does the impression. I'm not on the mic right now, so I don't want to talk too much.
Okay, I'll repeat it to him.
He does it very often on the show, on the Bear show.
He does it often on the Bear show.
In his MJ voice.
While he's reading super chats,
Carm
his
has
MJ
an MJ voice?
So he has a MJ voice.
What's the MJ voice?
It's really bad.
Well,
okay.
Of course it is. It's a
All
thing
right.
Carm does.
Well, I mean, it's
Damn.
got to be something because he can't reenact the shot.
No.
Well, yes.
No.
he tried.
He
but
tried and
can't.
failed miserably.
Yeah. But he has a voice to go with this.
Yeah.
Okay, next time we see Carm, we got to get him come on here and do this voice. I got to hear it. I don't know anything
I'm a little
about
concerned.
it. Yeah, I'm sure you should be, and you're right to be. But bring those concerns right here to
God.
this show so I can watch him do this, man. This sounds fun. He probably they're doing the softball today.
Man,
So I
the
know
comment
exactly.
saying, "Oh, it's awful."
It's awful. Yeah. Okay. Come on with it.
So, Mr. Perdue, is there anybody that you have watched film of in this 2024 draft class that most people are saying, that there is no franchise changer, and consensus-wise across the board compared to recent ones, it's kind of a weaker draft class? There's been rumors about the Bulls being one of a handful of teams interested in trading up to get their guy that they want on draft night. Anybody in this draft class that you've looked at, watched play, whether it be collegiate level, G League, international, and say, I like that guy so much, I wouldn't mind seeing the Bulls trade up to get him on Wednesday night?
Interesting.
No. That's the answer I was hoping for. I didn't know how you felt, though.
And that's it. That's the right answer. That is what.
Who do you want to be there at 11, assuming the Bulls just say, we're just going to stand pat and pick at 11?
Because there are a lot of big men in this draft, man.
I would prefer that they trade that for somebody that maybe does not fit in another system that's already in the NBA.
Ooh.
Explain that. What do you mean?
For whatever reason now, we're in, and it's just our society of instant gratification.
Okay.
So there is a possibility, and we'll leave it up to your viewers and listeners. We all know that there's probably some players out there, and I don't know off the top of my head, that have been drafted over the last 2 years that just aren't playing on their teams, that are quality. Now, they may not be game changers, but they're better than what's in the draft this year that I think can be had one way or another.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is that before, all the teams used to just, we're going to make sure that, we keep this guy for the first 4 years and see if he develops. Now it's like, because of instant gratification, if a guy doesn't really fit in a year or two, hey, maybe we can trade this guy. Right? I'm sitting here trying to rack my brain because I was just having a conversation with my son because he was going through all the mock drafts and what do you think about this player and that player? And I've gone through and like most everybody else, YouTube this guy and that guy. And I've watched enough college basketball to know who most of these guys are. Is there somebody out there right now that at 11 that could crack the lineup?
People say that Devin Carter, because of his many years of experience and age, is like NBA ready.
Yeah.
Very, very Bulls to draft a guy who's 22 years old, 4-year college player. They're a handful.
Did we do that before?
I think what
Shout out Denzel Valentine.
I think what Will's
Shout
saying
out Chris Dunn.
is kind of spot on and exactly what the Bulls did with the Giddey trade. They had opportunities. I mean, Sam Amick and Anthony Slater reported today, just before we went live, that the Bulls passed on an opportunity to get the 13th pick for Caruso last week. And presumably that would have come with, salary filler. We can debate whether that would have been a better deal or not. But, the point is,
No, I mean,
AK
you got
went
talent for Caruso. You got talent.
And AK targeted that talent. He went after a specific guy that he already has seen in the NBA. And so I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and it could be something the Bulls look to do. They clearly don't value that area in the draft, right? They had an opportunity to get back into that area of the draft, and they said, no, I'd rather get a player. So maybe that's something that they look to do on draft night. Maybe it's there were speculations about Patrick Williams doing a sign and trade with another team. Maybe you attach a pick to that and you get something better back. Maybe you attach a pick to Zach LaVine in order to move him. But I think like there are some guys that I like, and I would be happy if they're like, my opinion is like, let whoever is in front of you, let those 10 teams draft whoever they want. There's going to be 12 or 15 good players in this draft. You just take the best one who's available to you. But I also think that like, from my perspective, what it seems like AK is trying to do is like retool by getting a lot younger without having to just like do the we're going to be extremely bad, let's collect a bunch of picks phase. Correct. Let's skip that. Let's just get young. And even though it's going to be like more expensive than guys on their rookie scale deals, at least we can like start to build forward with a group of young players. And I don't think that's a bad idea.
Sure.
So if he feels like he can get someone better than we can get at 11, I'm for it.
Yeah, but I think something we haven't talked about, and I think you're spot on, because something we haven't talked about is that, remember where Billy left? Because he didn't, I'm sure there were numerous reasons, but one of them was that I don't think he was interested in going through a rebuild.
Yeah.
Who's now the coach of the Bulls? Is that do you think his thoughts have changed at all? Is that any different?
I actually had that thought when the Caruso trade went down myself, and was thinking like, we know that he got that extension after he brought him back to the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, and he's got several years on his deal. Why would he go from not having any interest in coaching a rebuild to suddenly, yes, I am interested in coaching a rebuild? Why would that change?
I don't think it would.
Yeah.
Because if he...
That's why people were talking to him or talking about him in certain college jobs that were opening up after the tourney.
But listen, he does that. He has no interest in going back to college.
Okay.
That's what we've heard.
Yeah.
He has no interest. But if the Bulls decided that they wanted to go the rebuild route and just hit rock bottom, I don't think he has an interest in that.
Sure.
But I also think like the minute he walks away or they negotiate a deal where he leaves, there's going to be teams knocking on his door. It's not like, well, he's not going to get another NBA job.
Right. Correct.
So I think part of what we have not talked about quietly is that he's still here. Mm-hmm. So I think that, him, AK, Mark, they don't want to totally rebuild. They still want to be, I'll use their word, competitive while they try to figure this out.
Well,
They can't do both simultaneously.
I've been in my conspiracy theory
for weeks. They can.
Let's try and stay competitive while we figure out while we're failing at being competitive.
They can, but it's going to cost money.
That part right there. It's going to cost.
Which is why Zach or DeMar have to go.
Yeah.
They can't bring them both back and bring Patrick Williams back.
There's no way.
And operate as a below the luxury tax team. They can't do it.
And you can't let Patrick go now that you're getting younger.
Correct.
You can't go in, whether we call it a rebuild or a retool or a reset around young players, whatever you call it. Like,
redo.
You can't go into that without future draft picks and without young players. Like, the whole point of that is to have a core of young players. That's what you just saw with the Giddey trade. I don't think he traded for Giddey in order to like go all in now. I mean, you got way worse.
Right.
Yeah.
And which is why, and you mentioned it in your column that dropped earlier this morning, we'll go read it, allchgo.com. Like, that is why the other piece of this puzzle is you must prioritize keeping that protected pick in next year's draft, which is deep, and there are gems everywhere. Obviously, Cooper Flagg being the biggest name that everybody's talking about, because you said, Will, you got a bunch of good, interesting young pieces. You do not have the guy.
Correct.
For the next iteration of Bulls basketball being actually competitive when that happens, maybe he's in the 2025 draft class.
Maybe. You got a super chat there.
Super chat from Robert saying, fellas, who are some high-level shooters the Bulls could look at in the second round? Love your content, fellas. We appreciate the super chat, Robert. Thanks for tuning in. Bulls do not currently have a second-round pick
They do not.
in this year's draft class.
Can you spend 45 seconds? Any guys you like?
Yeah, I could
Besides Dalton Connect?
rattle off a couple.
You got that right.
Again, to Matt's point, no second-round pick, but Baylor Shireman, he could end up in the late first round. Creighton.
But you can, as we've seen in the
6'7".
past, you can buy a second-round pick.
Sure can.
Yeah.
Sure.
My sweet special boy, Julian Phillips.
Cam Christie,
Superstar.
younger brother of Max Christie on the Lakers. Very similar player. He can really shoot it. Who else? I really like AJ Mitchell. I think he's not like a sniper knockdown shooter, but he's more of a shot creator. I think he could be really good. Bobby Klintman is a big who can shoot it. Johnny Furphy from Kansas. He's projected a little bit higher, but I could see him sliding. KJ Simpson's a point guard who can shoot it. Jalen Wells, Harrison Ingram. Melvin Ajinça is a name who I think will probably go in like the late 40s, early 50s. He is a very good knockdown shooter. Played in France this year, 6'7", good size, but all he does is shoot. He's not really doing much else, putting the ball on the floor or anything like that. And then there's some guys that like had moments of good shooting. I think Kevin McCullough is kind of the one who most people would point to as like was not a very good shooter for most of his career. Had 2 months of being a really good shooter, and like everybody thought he was going to be, All-American Player of the Year, and then got hurt. But there's some interesting role players I think in the second round that, some of these really high level teams who either don't have draft picks this year or need to shed money will buy into the second round in order to use that second round player exception now, which allows teams to get young players in the second round who can potentially contribute on very cheap deals without using their mid-level exception. That's what the Bulls did last year with Julian Phillips, and other teams, have utilized that as well. I think that could be an option for the Bulls if they do want to add some kind of end-of-the-bench shooting rotation minutes.
Okay.
Will, you said we sadly are about out of time. You said that you guys are going to do some sort of draft show on Wednesday night because we want you to come hang out with us at PB&J, but it sounded like you got your own thing going on.
Oh, I wouldn't mind hanging out with you guys. I'm not sure how valuable I'd be then for our show.
There's gonna be plenty of Coors Lights, PB&J. Deals.
Will LL Cool J be there with the train?
Wow. He's talking about the commercial.
The commercial.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll work on that.
I'll get a line out to his people.
Yeah.
So let me ask you what you guys think about this.
Okay.
I saw somebody scrolling earlier about anybody but Vooch.
As far as trade?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would you think about the possibility of getting the big man from the Nets?
Claxton.
Yep.
Claxton?
Speedy Claxton.
Nick Claxton, yeah.
Or possibly Precious.
Achua?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know how you go about getting either of those players.
I don't either, but yeah.
I like both those players.
Sure. I wouldn't mind either one.
I mean, I think most Bulls fans are ready to see the Bulls have a different starting center. We got 2 more years of Vooch. I don't know how you find a trade for him this offseason.
That's my thing. My understanding is both those guys are available.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have to get something. I mean, because I feel Drummond's leaving. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be out of here. He's going to go get his money and get a new contract. So that space is going to be vacant to have another center on your team.
I don't know if, since you brought that up, I'm just not sure if he is going to get better than a veteran's exception.
Really? No. Last year, one more just nice contract for him before he kind of rides off into the.
I don't think
big
there
man
is.
$1 million sunset.
Max contracts for him, I think, are done.
Yeah,
I mean,
not
there could
max.
be a
Not
mid-
max. Yeah.
Something
yeah.
There
above
could be
that
a mid-level.
Mid-level.
Sure.
But I don't think it's right, but I just don't think any of the teams really look at him as a major contributor.
Teams were calling the Bulls about him at the deadline.
That's true.
But I also, unfortunately for him, I think they were calling in the sense of more of a insurance policy. And the
Playoff
fact,
team.
yeah, let's sniff around and see if this guy's available.
There was a report today, I think, that the Sixers were calling the Bulls about him.
Yeah.
But here's my question though.
Yeah.
He was already there once. How much would he actually play with the Sixers?
A lot if Embiid can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
But that's my point.
Yeah. Insurance policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I love him.
Yeah.
I'd like to have him.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that he's, for the rest of his career, regardless of what he thinks, I just don't think he's ever going to play as much as he thinks he should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sadly, we have to wrap up. Will, we appreciate you coming by every single time. Bulls Nation, if you aren't already, You can follow Will on Twitter for all of his great NBA takes. Will_Perdue32.
Yeah.
Catch their show Wednesday night. You guys are going to be delayed after following White Sox coverage, yeah? Mm-hmm. So you can come hang out with us at PB&J and then get even more draft coverage from our guy Will Perdue here, his crew over there, our guy Jason Goff, Kendall Gill, who was with us last week. Again, shout out to our wonderful friends at Coors Light, who will be providing the delicious beverages for our draft party on Wednesday night.
Beers.
That's right. You can also get that delicious, cold, refreshing Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO basketball. Celebrate responsibly, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We are back tomorrow with another fresh episode for y'all, with another in-studio guest for y'all. I think it was Flex Diggs in the comment a minute ago making a cash considerations joke. There's a little hint for who our guest is going to be in studio with us talking about the NBA draft tomorrow.
All right, hold on. Before
Central.
we leave,
Mr. Perdue, the floor is yours.
they don't really let you talk much, do they?
What? First of all, this is the summer of Will. When it's the draft time, this is the summer of Will.
Nobody is here watching today to listen to me. We want to all hear from you. You're the special
Dreads
guest.
is.
That's true. Dreads is around for this.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
let me ask you this. In your opinion, what should the Bulls do on Wednesday?
I think they should draft the best player available to them, even if it's a guard. Sorry, they should take that best player.
But you're thinking they should do that instead of make some trades?
Oh, I mean, they should definitely make some trades. I'm thinking like
Yes, and.
assuming they're not going to do that. I have a hard time seeing anything getting done with Zach just because, and I've said this before, but like I just don't see teams going after him as their primary target. It's going to be a team like the Sixers if they miss out on Paul George and then also can't get Brandon Ingram.
Sure.
Or it's going to be the Magic if they can't get Paul George or they can't get Brandon Ingram. So Zach and even DeMar are not going to be like the first people off the board. And so I think that's going to kind of force the Bulls' hands because they are not going to be able to pay DeMar what he wants before they offload Zach. They're not going to be able to offload Zach. And so I think there's going to be some pressure there to get something done. And that's why I say like draft the best player, because the alternative might be attach a pick to move off of Zach so that you can bring back DeMar. That is not something I want to see. I think
Would you do
we're in
that trade
agreement there.
that everybody's speculating about the Lakers?
What's that?
So it was D'Angelo Russell, Vanderbilt, and who was there was a third player.
Hachimura.
Hachimura for Zach?
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
I don't love it. Those contracts are all more manageable, so you can like
But aren't you at a
those
point where
pieces.
you need to get him off the books?
But part of the thing is you also need to get his money off the books. If you have those guys' contracts, you still can't bring back DeMar. So that's why like the Pistons, you might have to give up a pick in order to dump him on the Pistons or the Wizards or the Hornets, one of those teams that is going to be willing to take on big contracts in exchange for getting draft capital. And so if that's the only way you can bring back DeMar, like to me, I would rather just see DeMar walk, keep Zach until you can move him for positive value, and keep your own pick. Like you're going into a rebuild. You got to have your picks and young players. That's most important. You can't just like live these two different pathways of trying to remain competitive and trying to also rebuild and be younger. Like
That's right.
we've seen the end result of that, and it's 39 wins.
Oh, them bars.
But you're exactly right. But that's what, to me, makes this next – how long before practice starts? 8 weeks?
Training camp, like October 1st. Media day was October 1st, yeah.
If what AK says is correct, that they've realized that this isn't working, they need to make changes, that's what makes these next 2 months so interesting.
Yeah.
Tick, tick. Tick, tick, AK.
And it really, to me, it is kind of coming down
Like
to
a
Zach or
tick-tick and
DeMar.
a tick-tock.
And I just find that really
It's
interesting.
like a bomb.
Because DeMar's the one
Well
that
done.
has the leverage to be able to move. And Zach, they can't get rid of him. Nobody wants him. So
Yeah. All right.
spot to be in.
Sadly, we are out of time. Will, we love you. We appreciate you, buddy. Give it up for the one and only Will Perdue. 3-time champ with our very own Chicago Bulls. Will_Perdue32. Check out their coverage on Wednesday night on the NBA draft following White Sox coverage over there on NBC Sports Chicago. Will to go, allchgo.com is where you can read his stuff. Will _Gottlieb, Big Dave Bow, BAWL Sports. Our pound producer on the controls, the one and only Joyce Bathis, at Joyce Bathis. Bulls _Peck. We are CHGO _Bulls. Same time, same place, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central. In studio guest, talking NBA draft.
One last thing before we go. You know what? I enjoyed coming here, but the best part is that when Peck texted me and told me he was picking up a tab at dinner tonight.
Is that what you say?
That never happened. Just like,
Will's learning from me. Doing stuff that's in
if
his
you
brain.
can deny Big Dave putting words in your mouth earlier on in the show,
Well done.
I can deny it.
I'm glad I can rub off on you.
You saw my lips move, but you heard Dave's voice?
Yeah, something like that. Hey, man, I feel like we're due. I feel like Uncle Will's picked up the tab the last couple times we've had dinner. I have a functioning credit card.
Yeah.
I can do it.
I could, but
Want to go halvesies, big?
no, I gave Will a ride downtown. He still got to
I still owe Dave.
Yeah. See what I mean?
All righty. Well, we'll let y'all know who ended up picking up the tab on tomorrow's episode. Until then, have a great Monday night. See Red be good, Bulls Nation.
Peace.